Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Austin Zest.
And Florian Rolke, welcome.
And here today, we're going to interview Florian Rolke about his business, his coaching business, and just kind of his life. Shiny object syndrome. This is what he's helping people with. This is such a huge issue that I know myself have experienced. I know Florian's experienced, and I'm sure many of you have experienced that, because we live in an age now where there's artificial intelligence is new, and there's so many options out there, so many shiny object, and so then you dilute your energies in all these different things, and then you end up getting nowhere. So he helps people to actually pinpoint one thing, which is so valuable in this age of so many different things, and you end up feeling so lost and like you're just not advancing. So you've been there, and you really help people get to one solution, find one AI solution that they're going to use and implement in their business. It's just incredibly powerful. So but first, let's kind of talk about your background a little bit. Where did you grow up, and how did you end up here in South America before we kind of go into the AI stuff? I think people would find that interesting.
Definitely. Thank you very much. Yes, I grew up in Germany. I was born and raised there in a very warm and supportive family that put a lot of emphasis on education. So I'm very, very glad for that. I know a lot of people, and my childhood wasn't perfect either. I can later on go into some things that were challenging or hurtful, but all of us had that. But I do think that especially the more challenging it was, sometimes people do not emphasize what was good. Most of that, because my parents did put a lot of emphasis on education, on giving us experiences and all of that. And so, I was doing well in school, and I was told that I should do something with my intelligence, right? So I went to college, studied business psychology for a year, and then dropped out because I wanted to start my own business instead, a marketing agency. And so through a few trials of trying to start a business, I realized at some point that I just could not get it done, but not because there was something wrong with the business model. I was quite fortunate to actually have picked intelligent business models that could have worked, but I was standing in my own way. And so I realized that there were some things inside of myself that I had to look at in terms of how I relate to people, in terms of shame, in terms of the pressure that I was putting on myself, in terms of deservingness, beliefs of I need to be a certain way in order to deserve friends in my life, in order to deserve a woman in my life, in order to deserve to be talking to my parents, in order to deserve to help people. Right. And so that led me on a journey into myself of reading a whole lot of self-development books, especially on the psychological side, Freud and psychoanalysis, psychotherapy, all different kinds of schools of psychotherapy I've studied. And I worked with hypnotherapy, and then eventually, because nothing was really working to the effect that I actually wanted it to work, I tried ayahuasca. And so that was such a profound experience, and frankly, at that point, I was very stressed and very desperate to find a solution. Sure. And now, in retrospect, I can see that was coming just from my own being very volatile emotionally, that like when things were going well, I was so enthusiastic about it, but when things were not going well, I was so hard on myself and so viciously hating myself for all of these things that I realized that this craving to look for a solution was very emotionally amplified by my own craving for drama. Right? Because I realized like if I have a bit of drama, then maybe some females would pay attention to me when they just see that I'm doing so bad and I'm suffering so much, right? That was kind of a pattern that I formed, right? Where my mother used to pay most attention when I was hurt, I guess. Right? And these are patterns how people form. Yeah. Some people get rewarded by doing well, and that was certainly part of my market, but also like whenever I was like hurt, falling down or something, and then you give a child a lot of attention only then they learn that when they do more of that, then they get paid attention to it. That can lead in adult lives oftentimes to people sabotaging or just putting themselves into positions where they are constantly sick or have an affliction of some kind, because subconsciously they're looking for sympathy basically. And these things we got to like uproot. And that was one of the things that I definitely took a hard look at with the ayahuasca, because that is showing you the things that you don't want to see intensely. And so the first experience in Europe was very insightful, very deep. And then I realized that I have not found anything that was helping me to that degree. And so I moved to South America in order to dedicate myself to that, because I figured, all right, I did not want to live in Germany anyways. I wanted actually to live in Australia, but then I also realized to move back there, it's expensive. And I kind of had the intuition that it might take me a little bit of time in order to get everything set up and going. Although I had some savings, I just went for the safer route of going to Peru. My reasoning was, okay, I can go there, I can live fairly inexpensively. I've been there already, so I've experienced what that's going to be like. Plus, it was far enough away that I would literally burn the boats and says like, okay, I'm committing to this life. I am here and I'm not going to go anywhere until I figured this. And I had the chance of working with that ayahuasca medicine in a fairly inexpensive way, where I felt like if I just do this like once or twice a month, it could really, really benefit me. That's how I got here in a nutshell. And many years after the AI consulting started, but that's how I got here initially.
Wow, that's an amazing story, and thanks for sharing that. And a lot of people would probably laugh when you say that going to Peru is the safer route, because a lot of people see that as a less safe route, because moving to a totally different country, whether it's not your language, that's a pretty difficult thing. But I think that's very brave to a lot of people. So thanks for sharing all that. I can definitely relate to a few things, points in there as well myself. But I did want to ask you, and this is actually a very interesting question, because we've been friends for quite a long time now, many years, over 5 years, and I've kind of seen in the last few years, right, you kind of getting into artificial intelligence. And I kind of remember clearly, like we were starting to work on some businesses ourselves together for a time. And I remember when you started using ChatGPT, I was warning you against it. Hey, don't touch it. I was scared. I was scared of that technology. I thought it was like something, evil, and it was going to control us right away and stuff. And but I just wanted to ask, like, how did that process go? Like where? Because I remember you started using it, and then you started using it more and more. And how did that feel? How did that process feel? Did you feel like something's really changing? Did you go through because I don't think a lot of people talk about this, because I know I went through that. It was kind of like, I remember feeling like, wow, like what is going on here? Like, is this like a sci-fi movie? Yeah. and my whole reality switched, and I couldn't believe it. And then the more that I got comfortable with the technology, I think it's an amazing tool, and it's incredible, and I'm very comfortable with it. But I wanted to see, what was your process with that? How did you get into AI, and what was that kind of like, that time span of starting to use artificial intelligence and being comfortable with the technology?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great question. Very, very insightful, very important, very deep question. Thank you for that. Yeah. Very considerate question as well. Very important one that probably a lot of people wish more would be talked about that. So it started in 2023 in April when GPT-4 came out. And back then I was looking into all different kinds of online ways to drive traffic. I've been looking particularly into SEO back then. So writing articles in order to drive traffic to our website, right? And that's how I came across ChatGPT, because you could basically generate articles much faster than if you could write them. Yeah. And it wasn't like one-shot prompting of like you just type it in and then it spits out the article. The way I was going about it, I was, coming up with a headline and writing a paragraph and then reflecting upon that, giving it back feedback. No, write it to me like that. And I was realizing that I had the ability now with artificial intelligence to work in a way that I knew I was fairly good at. So in graphic design, for example, I enjoy that, particularly in Canva, right? That I had the ability to basically just assemble different graphic elements and put them together into a design and then be able to publish them. And so I had the same feeling with when GPT-4 came out, where like, okay, I had a piece of text here, I can just give it to it, say, can you adapt it to the article, make it fit, then I change a few things manually, and I was writing these great articles. Great in the sense of they were starting to work, and also great in the way that everything that used to be manually, for example, putting links in or doing research, right? Some of the articles that we've been writing back then was about, in the medical field, like in the health field. And so quoting some Mayo Clinic or some authority pages was much easier with that.
Yeah, right.
And so, but the question is very valid. It may very well go wrong, and I'm very aware of it. But now we're we're on the river, and the river is moving fast.
Yeah.
And we will just have to see.
We will just have to see, right? Yeah.
What I'm doing is I know that this technology we will be exposed to that. So every one of us, whether at some point it will be like less and less talking to the bank teller, less and less talking to a supermarket clerk, more and more towards that, or whether it's just customer support over the phone. You call your bank, you call whatever kind of service provider, you want to change some plans. Like this is where artificial intelligence gets in. But I'm currently working with a select few clients who are actually utilizing the technology in a way that aligns with my own values. One example of a person that I'm working with currently is utilizing that for a receptionist, especially for Vietnamese-owned nail salons in one particular city in the United States. And so it doesn't replace anybody. Nobody is being let go of. In fact, it is a much better experience because this bot actually speaks English fairly well. On the other hand, the owner and the nail technicians working in the nail salon usually don't, but they are very good at what they do. So this is a use case where we can use that without letting anybody go, but by actually bringing more business in, so that probably more Vietnamese men and women can be employed in the nail salons doing, if they choose to work there, so that the business, so that when the people call or find this business on Google Maps, that all of these people can be converted, so to speak, meaning that they get served. And it's not standing in the way because the language barrier is there. That's one of the options how it can be used ethically. Now it will also be used, and a lot of people will be replaced. We also have to take a look at that. So this is going to be part of that also. But what I'm saying for me personally, as I said, I was always interested in giving live events and helping people in coaching. And now, especially over the last 5 years while I was here, my life is now slowly starting to shift in the direction where I actually deserve to be up there on stage and sharing. And obviously that's for other people to say and not for me to proclaim. But as I'm getting more and more inbound interest about what I do and like how I live my life, how I've kind of gotten here, even though it's kind of still, it's just in the making, it does take time. But I know that once that will be fully established and I have the ability to basically withdraw clients' information in a very secure way, I take massive precautions about data security for all of my clients. This is all safe, the data that we handle, because this is one part with artificial intelligence that we want to be aware of. That when somebody comes to a seminar of mine and we had contact before or had email contact before, I can, with a simple query to my database, pull out all of the information about this person. So that in the same way as Tony Robbins, who I'm very much looking up to, reads all of the 2,000 applications to one of his live events and kind of skims it through to like drink in all of that information so that he remembers intuitively some of these data points. I can also do that like in the breaks. When like I know exactly the types of information that this person has submitted while I'm in the break and they are having lunch for half an hour, I may just go to my database and kind of look up and it's like, okay, that's what he said about the family city. Now I got a bit more context. And so this is really how I personally am looking to employ that. But you are very right. It can go wrong and it might be catastrophic. But on the other hand, life as a human, like, I mean, you lose an arm in some kind of machinery that has always been part of like our grandparents. Like you break your back in the coal mine. It's a it's a different type of danger. I definitely understand that.
Totally.
But
it's no less dangerous than what our ancestors went through. Right?
Well,
and some people here in Peru, they live in the mines, and it's no less dangerous.
It's probably much more dangerous, I would say. But I'm saying like danger has, of course, but well, because it could wipe out all of humanity very quickly in all of that. But on the other hand, let's be very real about that. It's like dying is experienced as painful. Once we're dead, then we just join with the all, and there is like no suffering anymore. It's just like the process of dying that people are afraid of. People are not afraid of death; they're afraid of dying. Because when you're dead, then there's just eternal peace. But when you're dying, that's what people are afraid of. And so,
interesting.
but I mean, at some point, like, isn't it like that? Like, we live our lives until we die. And so that has always been the case. And so some people live longer and others don't. And so we just got to see what's going to happen. I'm just saying this technology will be there, and I will be using it, and I will be using it for good.
Yeah.
And maybe there's a chance we get it right. And if not, then maybe I die younger than expected. But what would be so horribly wrong about that? I'm just really saying it's like I've made peace with that, because who knows? Like, some people get stung by a hornet and they have a rush, and it's like all kinds of unfortunate kind of things. You know, they get hit by a bus.
Sure. Yeah, that's deep, man. We covered a lot of interesting stuff there. I wasn't expecting we were going to go into all that, but actually it all kind of ties together. And I actually think clients will appreciate that authenticity, because it is all kind of related, and it also helps people to figure out what they want to do in their life, you know. And like the AI is just like, it's a tool to help you to overcome. If you're afraid of all these things, if you're afraid of life and you're afraid of death, you're probably afraid of both. And you're probably not going to take risks, and you're probably just stuck in a job that you don't really like, and you're probably that's why you're even here listening to this, and that's why you're even involved with the shiny object syndrome, and you have this, and you're trying to find fulfillment in your life, probably not just monetary, probably something more. So this is why this is so interesting, pulling in all these different aspects, kind of spirituality and overcoming fear and traveling to another country, learning AI and like technology, and bringing it all into one thing, psychology all into one thing. Because like that can really help people, helping people figure that out, and then they can use these tools to really do what they actually truly want to do in their life. And you might help them figure that out in the first place. So I think it all ties in very much. And
And that's big part of my work is the actual consultation of like making it real. For example, the client with the nail salon receptionist, like he has considered other avenues as well. And frankly, we're still kind of looking and testing different niches. It's not quite that solidified yet, but that's one of the real use cases that we're massively considering. But the other part of that is like that life coaching aspect of it, because people, they have these fears inside of them, and they don't have anybody to talk to about, because other people are just deflecting that because they're dealing with those own fears, or they haven't dealt with it, right? So that's why it's important to draw it out of people's, like, what's really going on? It's like, what's making you anxious? Do you live in a country? Are you afraid of World War III? Like, what is happening? Let's talk about it. What's going on? What's afraid? Are you seeing the videos of the robots and you think it's like, what? Yeah. And once it's out, then we can deal with it. Once it's like spoken, then it's not so hard anymore. Then we can, but like if we keep it inside, and especially in AI, it's like we have to talk about this, because it may very well be or not, right? But like that's exactly the point here. Opportunity goes together with risk, and it has always been like that.
That's right.
Right, in the past times when you wanted to open a business, a bakery, you get a huge bank loan, and that's risky too. And either you make it or you don't. And right now you have this huge upside with AI that can transform a whole world of abundance for all of us, or can wipe us out. And so it's kind of the same. Like the bigger the opportunity, the greater the risk, right? Like in every business.
That's right.
It's like if you really like swing for the fences, you may whatever, like
sure
pop your shoulder or what. But what I'm saying is, if you take the risk and the reward, they go together.
I got one. That's amazing. I got one last question for you, and that's just kind of bringing back into this shiny object syndrome, which I think is just so fascinating. So the question is, how do you personally deal with shiny object syndrome when there's a flood of new opportunities in tech innovation, especially in your industry? You get all these alerts, you're in all these AI communities, and you see other people doing stuff. You might feel like you're missing out. FOMO in the crypto world, we call it FOMOing. You see another coin that goes up and you wish I should have bought it. So that's probably kind of the same thing. I should have invested my time in this other thing. So how do you personally deal with that? Because that's actually, you've had to have dealt with that yourself in order to help people out of that. So that's why I wanted to ask you, how do you personally deal with that? And
Such an insightful question. I appreciate you very much for asking these very, very deep and good questions, really on the point.
Yeah.
Because, so I ask myself, is it relevant to what I'm doing? I know for myself what I stand for and what I am committing my life to until I die. That's exactly what I meant before with this. Like, I'm walking this path, I'm getting up and I do my thing every day until I die. And that might be in 3 years or in 30 or in 300. Who the fuck knows? Like, really, who knows at this point? Like, it's one day at a time. And so I'm asking myself, is it relevant to what I do? Because what I am doing is coaching and life events. That's what I stand for. Helping people with conversations with people in the future more and more towards life events. And so I'm asking myself, is anything that's coming out, is it relevant to me? So if I see a new Google's A2A protocol right now, the agent-to-agent protocol, I'm like, okay, that's more for like production-grade agents that you would sell to like larger corporations where they have different business departments communicate with each other. I'm like, that's not really relevant to me. On the other hand, then I'm looking at MCP, where basically so within one model, ChatGPT or Claude, you can call different tools. So I can just type into Claude, please book me a calendar with my good friend Austin for tomorrow at 12 and write him an email whether he can or not. I can do that right within Claude. And I'm like, okay, that is relevant to me. Then I see like another voice model coming out where I'm like, okay, that could be relevant because my clients could communicate with that. And then I'm looking at some other, the new Gemini 3, and I'm like, no, that's not really relevant. We want to find out what's relevant to us. That's exactly the point, what I'm saying of like the commitment. Once we've committed and we say, okay, that's like the last point here, we are only going to do appointment setting agents for nail salons, and we're going to find the meaning in that. That was also one of the conversations that I had with him, is like, you know that for a lot of women, it's mostly women who go there, it's therapeutic. The women get to share, they get to get away from the house and the stress of the family, they get to feel beautiful and do something for themselves. It's an affirmation of self-worth. They have a good time there, and it's mental health positive. And he said, I am absolutely believing that because my wife is doing that and I see that it's beneficial for her. And so we want to find the deeper meaning in that. Plus, the customers can have a better experience because they get right through it. They get spoken English to, and they can book their appointment. They're like, wow, this business is, they called me right back. Like right within 30 seconds. How beautiful. I'm going to go there more often, and I'm going to refer my friend. And so the point being is, once we have defined that, then we can see what's relevant for me. Is the new thing relevant to what I'm doing? And so like once this is defined, it's very simple to ignore things that are coming that are not relevant to it. But the shiny object syndrome is usually afflicting people who have not yet decided what they want to do. And so I end with that. Let's figure this out. Let's have a conversation. You can find me on the channels. You Google my name, you can find me. Let's have a conversation. Let's figure this out.
Thanks for watching the interview. All the information is down below to Florian's channel and to my channel, Austin Zest. And then subscribe if you're not. Like the videos, obviously. And then go to florianrolk.com. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So, florianrolk.com. Set up an appointment and meet with him and talk and see if you guys can work something out. All right. Thanks for watching today. You guys have an amazing day. Peace.